Hi, how you doing? I'm Dr. Andrew Chappell, and today I'm going to talk to you about this webinar on post-contest recovery. So before I get into it though, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what the post-contest catastrophe actually is, what the problems are. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, and then we're going to go on and to do the actual webinar itself. If you find this content useful, then please do go on and check out some of the other content that I've produced as well. If you find this content useful and you think that I can help you with your own post-contest recovery or help you get in shape for your own events, then please do get in touch. So, when I talk about the post-contest catastrophe or the post-contest recovery phase, what am I really talking about? And this is a familiar concept for a lot of athletes, bodybuilders, people that go on really severe weight loss diets, and what happens when they finish the weight loss phase. So you can see here we've got a bodybuilder. He's in great shape. He just completed his physique contest, and then he's now about to gorge himself on a whole bunch of donuts because he's been depriving himself of those things for a period of time. So let's get on here. So what is the actual problem itself? And by the way, this is not a problem which is unique to bodybuilding or physique contests. As I said before, this is the sort of thing that you also see in people doing body transformations or in severe weight loss plans which don't have any sort of long-term planning associated with them. And essentially the problem is that you can end up in a worse condition post-prep or post-diet than you were in pre-prep. So you can end up in a situation whereby you're like fat 4 here and that you used to be a very muscular individual, low body fat levels, but then post-contest you've overconsumed calories, you've not gone back to the gym and done your exercise sessions, and you end up having a worse body composition than you might have had to start with. You might have binge eaten and added a lot of weight quite quickly. I've personally heard of a lot of people gaining a stone, sometimes 2 stone, within a week to 2 weeks. So I've heard these sort of things happening. It's not uncommon that sort of stuff does happen, and you can imagine all the problems that go alongside that. People get the post-contest blues. So post-diet, post-contest, people can get a little bit of depression associated with that. They've no longer got the goal, they've no longer got that purpose, the drive that they were aiming at before, and they can suffer a little bit. But this isn't just related to the goal-setting aspect of it. Their hormonal situation can be well out of whack, and they can have the blues because of this. People can suffer from eating disorders, or disordered eating at the very least. So they might go on binges where they're uncontrollably able to satiate themselves. They just have these crazy cravings, and all they want to do is just consume calories, and hence they end up in this situation here. You may end up with less muscle than when you started, as well as I said before. So if you've not got the motivation to go back to the gym post-contest, then you might end up having a little bit less muscle mass because you're not training as frequently, and it might take you quite some time to get back into a routine. So you end up more out of shape than you were to start with in terms of body fat levels, but with a lower amount of body mass. It can take some time to recover from that. Up here, this one here is reflected by a woman on a bed, but there's a man on the bed next to her. People can have their libido affected from this. This is hormonal in nature. So while those body fat levels can be very low in the situation they're in that post-contest period, if they don't regain the body fat levels, then they don't sometimes get their libido back, and they can also suffer from other fertility issues as well. And then I suppose a really sad thing is that people can be lost to fitness or to the sport of physique sports, bodybuilding, etc. forever because they go have such a horrific time going through this whole sort of process. Now, the big questions really are, how do we avoid these sort of problems? And I'm sure you can think of many other ones, and I'm going to go in and talk about some of them later on. Okay, before you get into that, though, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. Okay, so I'm Dr. Andrew Chappell. I am a PhD in human nutrition. I specialise in bodybuilders, bodybuilding populations, and my PhD itself was in the colonic gut microbiota. So we studied genetics, microorganisms, did lots of in vitro experiments from there. Since then, I've gone on and done postdocs, and I've done lots of work with bodybuilders in my own lab, looking at supplements and all these other sort of things as well. I'm a Master's of Human Nutrition as well. I'm a BSc in Sport and Exercise Science. I've done lots of studies on bodybuilding and supplements, published in the Gut Microbiota, omega-3 fatty acids, and I graduated from the Rowett Institute of Nutrition and Health. There's only 5 of them in the world, nutrition institutes, and I was fortunate enough to study at one of them under some world-class researchers. I got my degrees from Aberdeen University. I've worked at Sheffield Hallam. I've worked at Robert Gordon. I've also worked at Aberdeen. In terms of bodybuilding, I've done a lot. I must have done about 30 competitions in my life. You can see here some of my achievements. More recently, I've competed in 6 pro shows, 7 world finals from there. And I've also done some strongman as well. So I've done 7 under 90 kilogram strongman contests. I've judged all over the world. I've done 50 shows at least, including world finals, and I'm the head coach at ProPrepCoaching. So I'm bringing with me a lot of experience to this discussion. I've been involved in bodybuilding for almost 20 years now in this. So I've seen a lot of things. As well as that, the research that I've utilised is the same sort of stuff that I utilise for my athletes as well. So all the research that I've performed, we take that research and we use it to inform our evidence-based practice at ProPrepCoaching. And certainly, if you want to go and read some of my research, you can just go and Google me, go on PubMed, type in Chappelle et al. Bodybuilding, and you should be able to find some of my studies. This is me, incidentally, at the Mr. Universe contest as well, and this is one of my more recent publications at the same time. Here's some of my athletes from 2021. We had 63 shows that 32 athletes competed in. All in, we had 7 world finalists in the end, and we had 24 first places amongst the athletes that competed in shows. So you can go across here, you can see that I work with athletes across a whole range of divisions, categories, male and female, older and younger athletes as well. And I love it. This is what I do. So I help people get ready for shows. And as I said before, all these pictures, incidentally, these are my athletes. If this is something that you think that we can help you with, then by all means, please do get in touch. Most people lack the knowledge they require to get results, or they need someone steering them in the right direction so that they don't go off onto the wrong routes. They need that accountability. They want that scientific approach. And like I said, if you find this content useful, and you think we can help you, then again, please do get in touch so we can help you be the best athlete that you can. Okay, so moving on from there, and then getting back to the webinar. So I've already talked a little bit about what the problem is, but now we're going to talk about really what we're going to try and achieve from this webinar. And hopefully by the end of this, you should be able to take away from you what are the different stages of the bodybuilding season, understand what some of the consequences are of doing these contest preps, what your goals should be in that post-contest period, understand the need for that personalized approach, and then you sort of understand the concepts like reverse diet. So I'm going to talk about all of these things. Okay, so people have done a competitive season. So like Rob here on the right, or Chelsea on here at the left at the World Championships. And the next question really is, well, what comes next? Is it time to move into the off season or not, or really is it? That's the question that I would put to you. And when I first started bodybuilding, there was this paradigm. It really was you had the off season, and then you had the contest season, and it really was a loop. You just went round and round like this. Some people called it the on season from there, but over the last 20 years or so, that paradigm's really shifted, and there's really 4 distinct stages that you could talk about with a bodybuilding season, and you can subdivide these even more if you want to. But essentially speaking, you've got the off season, which I would describe as the improvement phase, the phase where you're trying to build more muscle and improve your physique compared to the last phase of training. Within that, you might have a tidy up phase, so it's almost like a pre-diet before you actually start the contest season. The competition season itself, that's where you're trying to lose weight, lose body fat to get yourself in shape for competition. Again, people do different things during this phase, and you could subdivide it with things like diet breaks and fat loss sprints and tune-up phases as well, but we'll just for now leave it as a competitive season. I'm sure you can all think of different ways in which you could shape it. We've got the peak week, which I think is a clearer phase. That's the week before the show where you're tapering in to be the best you can be. And then you've got that recovery phase of the season here. So we no longer go from just the off season to the competition season. We've got the peak week as well, and then we don't go back to this phase here. We have this recovery phase as well. So 4 distinct phases, I would say. You could probably even subdivide it into to other sort of micro phases using things like periodization. Okay, now with the recovery phase itself, what is it that you're trying to achieve? And I'll let you just pause the webinar for a second here so you can read this quote down at the bottom. But really what we're wanting to really try and do is restore any physiological, psychological and sociological damage which has been done from a contest prep. And contest prep dieting is severe. You lose a lot of body fat, and in the process that can have profound effects on human physiology and psychology. So these are some of the effects that we see, and again I'll let you pause this and you can go on and read that in your own time. For context, if you would like, go onto our website ProPrepCoaching.com and you can go and read this article, what they don't tell you about contest prep and what to expect. That gives you a lay summary of a lot of the points that I'm going to raise here. And also you've got this study here that I published in the Journal of Human Kinetics. You can go and check that out, and that's a study in which I performed on 5 athletes getting ready for competitions during a month-to-month phase where I would record their instances of how they were getting on, take bloods, take urine, take saliva, and test various physiological parameters during the contest phase and in that post period. So a lot of this information is based on actual scientific research that I've performed myself. Okay, so what actually happens when you get ready for stage or get super lean? I'm talking about for a man down to 5 to 3%, for women down to say 11 to 12%. Well, what we see is you see suppression of estrogen, testosterone and thyroid hormones. So all of these things can be profoundly affected and do not recover until we start to regain the body fat levels and the calorie amount. We see an increase in cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone, but it's also responsible for mobilizing fuel stores. So fatty acids are mobilized in response to cortisol being released, as are amino acids and glycogen. So we see an increase in this to feed the body. We can see a suppression in the BMR, and that is because we see a reduction in thyroid hormone, but we can also see a loss of muscle mass and skeletal mass, which are also going to affect BMR. So metabolism gets suppressed beyond what you would normally expect to see. And people very often report moving slower, lack of fidgeting, things like this going on within the body. And this is why sometimes people wear weighted vests. People get very poor at regulating their body temperature. So body fat levels are low, fat is an insulator, but also they stop shivering, stop moving as much at the same time. So we see things like that. Sleep can be severely disrupted. I've talked about the loss of the sex drive. Again, we could relate some of that to testosterone and estrogen. The menstrual cycle loss in females is very common. People suffer from, or women suffer from, amenorrhea or oligomenorrhea, where the cycle becomes erratic. Gastrointestinal issues are common, so people need to go to the bathroom less frequently, but also they can have issues in the post-contest period as well, as their stomach is shrunk. And then when you see cardiovascular adaptations beyond people getting fit, so although people's heart rate and blood pressure go down because they're getting fitter, you also see them being suppressed at the same time along with their metabolism. Again, the body is literally shutting down systems as we get lower and lower. In terms of psychological consequences and sociological consequences, people often talk about getting tunnel vision, and for a goal there's nothing wrong with that because it can keep us extremely focused. But the problem with getting tunnel vision is that it can often lead to social isolation. So people stop meeting friends and families, they don't go out to see partners, things like this, anymore, and when they finish the contest phase, they can find it difficult to re-establish those relationships again, or they might have some anxiety about trying to re-establish those relationships again. So people can do harm to their social network during this period as well. People develop obsessive compulsive behaviors, so weighing themselves quite frequently, too frequently, checking themselves in mirrors too frequently, trying to track steps too frequently, checking their phone too much, and social media. And we want to try and be conscious of these things or not be necessarily normal behavior. If we give people psychometric tests, we also see increases in anxiety, things which didn't bother them before become much more of an issue. We see depressive score indexes going up as well, so people start to feel more low in themselves. Again, a consequence of lower testosterone levels, lower estrogen levels at the same time, and the pressure of a goal. We also see people developing disordered eating patterns, and they can have real issues with getting back to good eating habits afterwards. We also see some body dysmorphic disorder, so people not being happy with their body image post-contest and even during the contest cycle as well. They can't see themselves as others see them. So real profound things can occur, and I would hazard to say that a lot of these things are individual. Some people might suffer from one of these things, but not all of them. Some people might get them all. Really does depend, like the physiological situation. Sociologically, I've mentioned some of these things as well, but people can suffer from an ability to take downtime, to relax, and then they can lose hobbies as well. Now, I should mention that good coaching can help you negate a lot of these effects, but some of these things are unavoidable. And the more severe the diet is, the poorer the coaching, the poorer the diet, the more likely we're going to suffer from some of these issues. Now, I talked about worst case scenarios, but there are some other things that are worth considering. So people can suffer from things like refeeding syndrome. So if someone is in a situation whereby they've been starving, so think hunger strike people, or think about people who are in famine situations, if they are to consume a whole load of calories very quickly when they've been a very severe diet or very restricted in terms of calories, it can actually cause them to have heart issues, certainly a lot of gastrointestinal issues, and a lot of sickness as well. So we have to be conscious of these things and not consume too many calories too soon. And certainly I have known people to again gain a lot of weight in a very short period of time and suffer from things like Bell's palsy, so a side of their face dropping as a consequence of eating too much, and it took them several months to recover from these things. You get this metabolic damage. This is the idea or the concept that you've lost muscle mass and you've gained excess body fat, so you've now become, I guess, skinny fat, or in a worse position when you started. The disordered eating habits, people might, instead of developing good habits, end up having poor lifetime habits post-contest time. We've got to be conscious of this. Depression can last longer if not fully addressed in terms of goals. Libido issues, fertility issues, again, if people don't handle the post-contest period properly, then these periods can be a real issue. We can lose our love of the gym, never compete again. And then in terms of a coaching situation, we'd be concerned that we'd obviously leave lasting damage to the individual, which damages your own reputation within the industry as well. So bad rebounds post-show can also put you in such a bad position that it makes it impossible for you to compete in the post-contest period. And I want to sort of get across as well that this idea of the post-contest rebound to build excess muscle mass is a myth. It's not something that we sort of really see people gaining extra amounts of muscle mass beyond what they would get in a normal sort of scenario, as used to be thought was the case. And just finally, there are some other off-season mistakes that people should consider as well. People do burn out because they've gone from one diet, e.g. the pre-contest diet, straight to the off-season diet from there. And that can burn you out. And people don't last too long in the sport if they do that. You're probably talking 2 or 3 years max. Planning is a massive off-season mistake. And then finally, the bad rebound example here. If you gain, say for example, a huge amount of weight, and in this scenario here, a 24-week diet, if you're looking to lose a pound a week, then you're going to lose about 24 pounds or 12 kilograms in that period of time. If you gain more weight than that and you're looking to get in shape in a 24-week period, then you're going to struggle. So worth considering how you're going to potentially be able to improve if you've gained more weight than this. Okay, so what is the solution to all of these problems? Well, the reverse diet, many in the industry would describe as this is the perfect scenario for overcoming these issues. And the reverse diet really aims to mitigate the consequences of the diet while minimizing the fat mass accumulation by gradually increasing the energy intake. You can read the quote at the bottom here. So you've got this concept here of whereby people get ready for a competition, their metabolic rate gets suppressed or it drops because of the loss of muscle mass, suppression of thyroid. Body weight goes down at the same time, that's this black line here. And then once they've reached their goal, we want to increase the calorie intake, which has a positive effect on metabolic rate, but the body weight is maintained low so we don't increase too much fat mass. Context is extremely important here, however. And I think that the reverse diet probably works quite well in a scenario whereby people are not contest prep ready. So just a body transformation, someone goes from, say, 20% body fat down to 9 or 10% body fat. In that situation, probably not that severe, and you could probably implement something like this, no problem at all. And I think that Lane Norton's book here is really aimed at those sort of people from here, whereas the other book here is certainly much more looking at the contest dieting bodybuilder from here. In those scenarios, I would say that it's probably not your go-to strategy. And the reason being is because people are not robots, and the adherence is really the difficulty here. To get people to go from one diet and essentially just to continue dieting after, say, 20 or 30 weeks of getting ready for competitions is a big ask for a lot of people. And I want you to sort of think about this scenario here. As people get ready for competitions, they've got a goal over here, and it's an uncertain goal. And where that uncertain goal is in place, e.g. will they win or not, the amount of dopamine hit that they get, which helps them get ready for that goal, is massive. And it's that dopamine that people are getting hit with, which allows them to shut down and override the hunger sensors in their brain. Okay, so really, they're not going and seeking out food. They're not going for those extra calories. They're suppressing their body's own natural desire to go and eat. However, once we achieve this goal, very often that dopamine hit or these hunger signals are no longer held back, and the floodgates begin to open, and you get a big sense of all those hunger hormones overriding any response from the individual to sort of not gain that extra weight. So people invariably will go and consume a lot of calories in that post-contest period. Having a goal in place, which is let's gain a little bit of slow body weight from there and slowly diet, a very difficult thing to try and achieve, as I say, because that goal itself is not as strong a motivator as the one which is contest prep ready. And the mistake that a lot of people make in the first year is, because they've never done it, is that they gain a lot of body weight quite quickly because they're not used to having to restrict their calories for such a long period of time. And people get better at it as they go along. But I would just say that adherence to something like this is very typically very poor from speaking to a lot of coaches in the industry. Okay, the other thing that we have to consider is this recovery phase. We've got all these profound physiological and psychological problems that people face. Once people regain the body weight or a certain amount of body fat again and get closer to their off-season levels, so they go from 3% to 12%, or if they're a woman, they go from 11%, 12% up to 20%. A lot of those consequences, things we talked about, disappear. And recovery should always be the priority for people in that post-contest period. So they need to regain weight and not feel like they're on a diet as well from that sociological, physiological sort of situation. People can take time off the gym, and that's an interesting concept for us to discuss here in the context of bodybuilding. But I would say if you can take a week off, take 2 weeks off if you can. You've got injuries, you've got niggles, and we want to recover. Steady weight gain probably makes sense, but we don't want to probably overshoot our previous off-season weights. So 10 to 15% above stage weight is probably where you want to be. Half a kilo to a kilo weight gain per week is probably a good place to be from here. We really want to establish healthy relationships with food. So that means we have to have off-plan meals, unplanned meals, untracked foods. We have to have foods so that we can understand, again, the importance of which food plays in a social context. We need to get over that anxiety around having different things on plan and not tracking things. We need to step away from tracking. We have to reduce the obsessive compulsive habits. We need to stop weighing ourselves regularly. We need to stop taking photos of ourselves. We need to stop obsessing over social media and just get ourselves into a mind space again of exercising for fun before we go back to the serious phase of training. We want to re-establish strength and performance levels that we had prior to competition as well. We want to get back to where we were before, and that's how we'll have a good indicator of if we've recovered. In females, we want to get that menstrual cycle back. We want restoration from there, although I will say I've known males who have had severely suppressed testosterone levels for months post-contest because they've not come at this from a recovery perspective. And it's worth pointing out that sometimes you might have to gain a little bit more weight to get that menstrual cycle to come back. So previously you might have been 60 kilograms in the off season. Well, it might take you to get to 63 kilograms for your menstrual cycle to come back. And I guess one of the big concepts we have to consider is in this reverse dieting approach versus this sort of recovery approach is that 3 to 4 months post-contest, are we in the same position, e.g. from taking time off the gym, having that healthier relationship with food, as if we were just to do a reverse diet 3 to 4 months post-contest. Because if in your same place, body fat levels are good, you're in a manageable situation, then it's certainly worthwhile considering that approach as being a healthy way to do it. The big thing really here though is, and again, pause the slides for this to go through these points, that a one-size-fits-all approach isn't the one you should be trying to take. Every athlete is different. Some people will have different needs, different expectations, and certainly I'm more likely to take time off the gym at professional level compared to when I was a seasoned athlete, a teen or a junior, where I went straight back in the gym. But I've learned a lot of stuff since then. Also, where the individual is in terms of their own career, their development, do they make money off the sport or not? That's another consideration, because the parent juggling a household, job, 3 kids is very different from the 25-year-old influencer. So we shouldn't be trying to ram square pegs into round holes as well, particularly if people got careers, exams, things like this that will have to be considered, because it's still an amateur sport at the end of the day. Finally, the last sort of things that I want to sort of put out there is that other high performance sports have got their seasons as well. So we can talk about NFL, NBA, soccer, boxing, tennis, and you can see these seasons don't last the whole year. And post that, you can see that these athletes, they go on holiday, and I think we can all agree that these are high performance athletes featured here. Time off is considered important in other sports, but not so much in something like bodybuilding. And it's the only sport I've ever known where people will go straight back into the gym the week after a competition, or the days after a competition, and not allow themselves to really recover. So we need to consider this from a bodybuilding perspective. And you know what? There are examples of bodybuilders. Kev Levrone, famously, Ronnie Coleman, famously, these guys used to take a couple of months off competing, training in the gym, and recover from the whole arduous nature of the bodybuilding season before coming back. And that's perhaps one reason why they were prolonged for so long in the sport, why they managed to last so long. So we want to consider these things as well. It's not necessarily, this is not an alien concept, and certainly we should be taking a lead from high performance sport, I always say. Finally, goals are important, and making a plan pre-end of diet, I think, is very important. So we need to have milestones, we need to have a roadmap set out. These goals need to be specific, short, medium, and long term, on what it is that we want to achieve in that post-contest period. And again, this should be specific to the individual. And here's an example of this sort of stuff here as well. So we've got 1 to 2 year goals, 3 to 6 months goals, and then short-term goals. And in the context of the recovery phase, we're maybe looking at things like in the short term, going for a couple of meals off with your family per week, allowing yourself to not track food a couple of times per week. And then 3 to 6 months later on, we're probably in a phase whereby we've regained our body weight, we've improved some of our squat, bench and deadlift goals, and we've increased our flexibility. And in the long term, we're looking to win our first bodybuilding goal. So goals are important. We need to set them. We need priorities so that it can help us hit the mark and achieve what we want to do, because we don't want to be rudderless in that post-contest period. It's important so that we can avoid that sort of post-contest depression. Okay, so just finally, in conclusion, to summarize, and these are some minor, well, not minor points, just worth taking home, that no one size fits all approach should be taken. You can have a method, you can have ideas, but we have to bend around the individual. Some people are going to want to gain weight a little bit slower. Other people are going to want to gain it a lot quicker. It just really does depend. Males and females can be different from there, but not to generalize, because some males can be different from the sort of the norm, I would say. Reverse dieting, I think the big thing to take away from that is that you're still dieting, and it's really in the name. And I would always say that the adherence is very poor in these situations, but it's context dependent. Recovery should always be your priority, and I would always say look to gain around about between 10 to 15% of your stage weight. So if you're 8 kilos on stage, probably somewhere between 88 to 92 kilograms is probably where you want to be. Okay, there's some references here I think you'll probably find useful. And finally, and then I would just say, if you think that we can help you at ProPrepCoaching get ready for a competition, help you recover from competition, and you think we've got the skills that you require to help you do that, then please do get in touch, and I look forward to hearing from you. I'm Dr. Andrew Spell, and thank you for your attention. Please check out the rest of our content at ProPrepCoaching, Fueled by Scott Soaps, WMBF UK, and check out our websites as well. Thanks very much for your time. Goodbye.